and another effective one. Matthew breaks a tackle, breaks another, gets a block. There are no flags and the race is on. And Matthew goes 90.
Burrow with the snap. Here comes the blitz. Burrow steps away from it, throws, catch made! Justin Jefferson has it at the 38, racing down the far line, sideline, 10-5, touchdown, Tigers!
Another play fake by Burrow, and a deep strike, and an open receiver, Jamar Chase, another touchdown!
Daniels pulls it, takes it himself, he's got the sideline! Jane Daniels off to the races, and a bang back inside, he takes it to the house, 85 yards for Daniel.
Go ahead and say it, Ed.
Go Tigers!
Welcome in to the Gold Standard Podcast. I'm your host, Joe. Thank you for watching us today. Look, here at the Gold Standard Podcast, we love purple, but it's all gold, baby. So if this is your first time watching, make sure you like, share, subscribe, jump in the comments. Make sure you turn on your notifications so you don't miss any more episodes. Man, what a week it has been. National Signing Day. We got coaching news. We got it all. I mean, if you have been an LSU fan for the past 45 to 60 days, man, what a whirlwind it has been. And it's been a pleasure to be here with you guys and to cover all this information. And look, there's a lot of information for us to cover, but we're going to try to do our best to cover it all today, okay? So first up, since it is National Signing Day, let's talk about LSU's 2025 recruiting class, or 2026, sorry, it'd be 2026 recruiting class. So the rank, just depend on the website that you use. There's going to be different websites. According to LSU 247, LSU's class ranks 13. Let's see. And let's see what it says on 3. And on 3, LSU's class ranks nationally 11. So you're talking about either, depending on the service that you use, the number 13 class or the number 11 class. And I know for LSU fans, that's not something that we're normally sitting here beating our chest about, but you have to keep things in perspective. This is in the midst of a coaching change. Our head coach landed on campus 3 days before National Signing Day and was able to keep most of the class intact, add some pieces in, and still finish with a relatively top 10 class, depending on the service. There'll be some more pieces to be added before the end in February, obviously. But right now, as it sits after the early signing period, LSU has a top 15 class. Let's just say that. I'm just going to go through individually, just for those who don't keep up with it like I do. Let's see here. So the number one recruit in the class, the number one player in the 2026 class is going to be Lamar Brown, who plays at University Lab. He's listed as a 6'4", 285-pound lineman. He plays on both sides of the ball. He plays offense and defense. He will play defensive line at LSU. Next up, we have Richard Anderson, and Lamar Brown is also a 5-star. I shouldn't have to clarify that, but look, he's a 5-star player, number one player in the entire country, rated on most services. The next player up we have is going to be Richard Anderson, who's a 6'3" and a half, 350-pound lineman from Edna Carr in New Orleans. He's a 5-star player, ranked either 18, 12, kind of averaging out, just depending on which service you like to use. He's a 5-star player. So that's 2 5-star defensive linemen at the head of this class. Next up, we got Deuce Geralds, who's 6'1", 268, out of Collins Hill in Sewanee, Georgia. He's the number 3 ranked overall defensive lineman. number 48 player. And I think I'm just going to use the industry rankings from Rivals. Okay, so Lamar Brown will be number 1 overall according to the Rivalry's industry ranking. And then Richard Anderson will be 24 according to the Rivals industry ranking. Deuce Gerald's will be number 48 overall according to the Rivals industry ranking. Massive coup there. Your top three recruits overall are all on the defensive line in the trenches. And we know LSU hasn't been up to LSU standard there previous in the past few years. So to start the class off with a bang with those three guys, 1, 2, 3 at the headline, it's a chef kiss. Next up, we had Trent Hitcherson, who was 6'4", 225 pounds, out of Pine Forest, which is in Pensacola, Florida. He was the number 77th ranked player, according to the Rivals industry ranking. Long, rangy edge out of Pensacola, who LSU is in love with. There was some late buzz that Auburn was trying to flip him. So shout out to the coaching staff for being able to keep him in tow and keep him coming to Baton Rouge. Bryson Martinez is up. He's the 6'5.5", 290-pound offensive tackle out of East Ascension in Gonzales, Louisiana. He's ranked the number 97 player overall. Always good to be loading up in the trenches there. LSU needs help on the offensive line. Can Bryson come in and be an immediate impact player? That's yet to be seen. But always great to just stack up talent on the offensive line. Hopefully going into next year, we'll have a little bit better coaching. We'll obviously have a better offensive scheme. So looking for vast improvement on that offensive line. Next up, we got Havon Finney, who's the 6'1.5", 170-pound corner out of Sierra Canyon in Los Angeles, California. He's ranked the number 105 player overall. Very tied to Corey Raymond here. This one was dependent on Corey Raymond as long as Corey Raymond stayed. Most people felt confident about Havon sticking in the class. So he stuck, and that'll kind of let you know where we're going with the coaching news. Next up, we had Jabari Mack, one of your wide receiver commits, your highest wide receiver commit out of Destrehan in New Orleans. So number 139 player overall. He's a 4-star player. Excited about his future and his potential. Next up, we had the first flip candidate that actually came through. Corey Barber. He's a 6 foot, 185 wide receiver out of Clay Chalkfield in Pinson, Alabama. He's the number 167 ranked overall player. If you watch his film, very explosive, very elusive, bigger body guy. Just something that LSU hasn't had in a while on the outside is that fast, physical wide receiver that they're looking to just feed. So a lot of these receivers kind of fit that mold along the lines of not necessarily the player, but along the lines of Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors type of receiver on the outside. And, not so much sort of the 5'9", 5'10", 11 slot guys that we've been getting lately. Next up was Aiden Hall, who's out of Edna Carr in New Orleans. He's a teammate of Richard Anderson, the 5-star defensive tackle. He's ranked the number 196 player overall, according to the Rivals industry ranking. Always good to get and keep talent out of Edna Carr, keep it in New Orleans. Physical safety is what I've heard a lot about him. Physical safety, in the box safety. So great get there by Corey. And J.C. Anderson's up next. He was another flip candidate from Ole Miss. And sorry, I didn't talk about it before, but Corey Barber flipped from Ole Miss into LSU's class. J.C. Anderson also flipped from Ole Miss's class into LSU's class. He's a 6'6", 230-pound tight end out of Mount Zion in Decatur, Illinois. He's ranked the number 273 player overall. Top 11 tight end. Anytime you can get a 6'6" tight end that's got good mobility, good ability to move, you got a potential weapon there. And then we move to Isaiah Washington, who's a 6'1" safety, 170 pounds out of Haynesville, Louisiana. He's the number 410 player overall, number 34 at his position, number 13 in the state of Louisiana. Braden Allen, who was another flip, he came from Oklahoma and flipped to LSU. He's the number 437th ranked player overall, 67 at his position. Another bigger guy. They really like his explosiveness. They really like his toughness. They really like his body type. Dez Ellis, who's the cornerback, 6'2", 185 out of Franklin Parish in Winsboro, Louisiana. He's a number 438 player overall. Dez actually plays quarterback in high school, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going to be one of those transitional, long, rangy athletes, best athletes on his team, and Coral's going to try to turn him into a corner here. Same thing they're kind of doing with Michael Turner. He was a receiver, explosive, long receiver that they're turning into a corner. Same kind of build and frame for Dez. He's a little bit bigger than what Michael Turner was, but same idea. And then last was Ryan Moret, who's a 6'4", 300-pound inside offensive lineman out of Miami, Florida. He's ranked the number 881 player overall, 82nd at his position. To my understanding, he's either going to be a guard or a center type of guy in college. So there you have it. Great class. You know what's so funny? This is a 14 commit class. This is going to go down, if they didn't add another piece, probably as the highest class that Lane Kiffin has signed since being at Ole Miss. I don't think he's ever signed a top 10 class at Ole Miss. He'll come to LSU and sign a top 10 class just based off half of a class being there. Again, just adds more credence to what we've been talking about and the reasons why Lane Kiffin would leave Ole Miss to come to LSU and why he made the move. So that's the early signing day. For those who don't know, there is another signing day in February that was the normal signing day. So there are commits that will join this class. There are more candidates to join this class, and the class will finish with more players in February. So coaching news, man. This is what you guys came here for. So we'll start off with the big breaking news as of last night is that Blake Baker, LSU's defensive coordinator, is staying in Baton Rouge after a long, tumultuous, agonizing, as some would say, battle with Tulane. And it's always good to have continuity in transition where we're going from a new offensive scheme, new offensive mindset, a new coach with Lane coming on the offensive side. So having the defensive side pretty much stay intact, especially with the scheme, with Blake kind of staying there, is just a phenomenal win from this LSU administration. Phenomenal win from Lane Kiffin. Guys, you pair Lane Kiffin's offensive mindset, it's going to be a top 25 offense at worst, with LSU potentially having a top 25 defense on the other side of the ball. Now you cooking with fish grease. So shout out to the administration and Coach Kiffin for being able to retain Blake. Tulane is Blake Baker's alma mater, so you can imagine why it kind of took so long and why he was tussling and really wrestling with the decision of whether to go or whether to stay. And just an amazing kid. I mean, you can't underrate how big it is to get him back. He's one of the better, younger defensive minds in this game, and he will be a head coach someday. But you just hope we can have him kind of hang around a couple of years and then move on to something bigger and better, because he will be a head coach one day, and he wants to be a head coach one day. But it just goes to show you how amazing the pool is of LSU to get a guy that was, all but out the door to his alma mater, and they were going to give him what he wanted, NIL and all that kind of thing. And he's probably going to be the highest paid coordinator in college football, deservedly so. So with that, there was also more breaking news on Saturday morning. LSU has officially hired Elijah Robinson as his new defensive line coach. And for those of you who don't know, LSU defensive line coach was Kyle Williams this past year. He's a former alumni, All-American, Pro Bowler, All-Pro in the NFL with the Buffalo Bills. Long career. He was previously the head coach at Ruston High. Took some time off to kind of spend time with his kids and his family, but did LSU a solid in coming and coaching the defensive line for 1 year. So it's not an issue particularly where Kyle was necessarily forced out. It was all but understood that Kyle was kind of here doing his thing for 1 year, and he was going back to hang out with his family, all with, all respect there, and we understand that. So Elijah Robinson, for those who don't know, he's previously at Syracuse. He was the defensive coordinator, but got, I think, bumped down, demoted to the defensive line coach again by Fran Brown over there. But Elijah Robinson is one of the better-known defensive line coaches in the country. He has a reputation for being a good coach, very good coach. He has a reputation for being an excellent recruiter. If you guys remember the famous Texas A&M 2022 class that had all those 5 stars in it, all those defensive line guys, the Walter Nolan class and McKinley Jackson, those guys, all that's going to be Elijah Robinson. To give you another idea about how critical Elijah Robinson was, Dominic McKinley, who's one of your starters at defensive tackle or rotating guys, and then Gabe Rutherford, who was a starter at defensive end before he got hurt. Both of those guys would have been at Texas A&M if A&M had if he not had moved on from A&M. If Elijah didn't move on from A&M, Gabe Rutherford and Don McKinley would be at Texas A&M. So the pull that he has, he's known as a great recruiter. He's known as a good teacher, good coach. Heck of a coup for Lane Kiffin to go get a top 5 defensive line coach, a top 3 defensive line recruiter in the country, and add them to your staff. Look out for LSU being monsters on the trail with defensive linemen in Louisiana, Texas, and the southern states. And they will be monsters in the transfer portal when it opens up here in January. So just to kind of update you, let's see where the coaching staff stands right now as we sit. So right now, you have Lane Kiffin as your head coach. You have Charlie Weiss Jr. as your offense coordinator. Reports he's going back to coach Ole Miss in the playoffs, and then he will be coming back as Lane's offensive coach over here in Baton Rouge. We have tight ends coach Joe Cox, came over from Ole Miss. George McDonald, wide receiver coach, came over from Ole Miss as well. LSU did hire Eric Wolford from Kentucky. We don't know if he's the full-time offensive line coach or if he's an assistant just yet. And then on your defensive side right now, you're looking at Blake Baker as your defensive coordinator, your linebackers coach, Corey Raymond as your cornerbacks coach, Jake Olson as your safeties coach, the defensive line coach, Elijah Robinson, and your edge coach is going to be Kevin Peoples. So nothing changes on the defensive side except for you insert Elijah Robinson in there for Kyle Williams. And then on the offensive side, we still don't know. I would say we know Joe Cox and George McDonald for sure are going to be your on-field coaches. One's going to be the OC. Sorry, Joe Cox is the co-OC and tight ends coach, and George McDonald is going to be your wide receiver coach, passing coordinator, and Charlie Weiss is going to be your OC. So we know those guys offensively are going to be on the field for Lane. Not sure how the staff feels out. Look, there's still questions about what Frank Wilson does. Does Kevin Smith, the Ole Miss running back coach, come over here with Lane to join Lane's staff? We don't know. But it has been a great, great week of LSU sports. Exciting to follow. There's a lot of nail biters there. The class went from having everybody locked in to some guys. Look, there were some guys that flipped out of the class. Bryson Cooley went to Alabama. It was understood towards the ends of signing day that he would do that. Dylan Purter out of Alabama flipped to Florida. And then the Tigers let go of Jalen Chapman, and he decommitted and went to Ole Miss. And Kenny Darby was a receiver that was committed, decommitted, and went to Kentucky, as far as I'm understanding. Kentucky also hired former LSU OC Joe Sloan. So shout out Kentucky. Thank you for hiring Joe Sloan. I wish you all the success and best of luck there. So like I said, it's been a crazy, crazy week with all the news, all the coaching news, all the recruiting news. It has been a blast to follow and a blast to try to keep up with. But at this point, I think all of the fans and everybody that covers LSU is exhausted. So we all need a little bit of a break. Need a little bit of a reprieve, try to get some sleep, catch up on some sleep, and put our phones down for a minute and try to have a few days where we don't have any breaking news about LSU recruiting or coaching wise. Who knows what will happen? Who knows what's next? Like I said, there's still some positions on the offensive side that Lane still needs to fill out and make permanent hires there. But as of now, guys, things are looking good. It's a great time to be a fan of the LSU Tigers. We have the coach that we wanted in Lane Kiffin. We've got a top 10 recruiting class. We've got impact players coming in like Lamar Brown and Richard Anderson and Deuce Geralds. The transfer portal is going to open up, and LSU is going to be aggressive. Look, we saw them be aggressive with players like Chris Henry Jr., who ended up signing with Ohio State. I heard LSU made a massive offer to him. There's a tight end that signed with USC that's like the highest paid tight end of all time that LSU made it a discussion with because they really jumped in the game there. Jace Matthews was another one that was with Auburn that ended up signing with Ole Miss. LSU stuck their hat in the game there with the NIL and made it a decision there. So you can imagine how aggressive LSU is going to be in this signing portal for transfer. I'm not going to be surprised at all if Lane signs multiple, and I mean 3 possibly quarterbacks out of the transfer portal. They went very aggressive at Landon Duckworth as well, was another one who's out of Alabama and signed with South Carolina. They made South Carolina empty the entire clip to get Landon Duckworth to South Carolina. So shouts out there to them for being aggressive, throwing their hat in the game there. It just shows you in a week's time how bad or how not good of a job that the previous staff was doing, to where this staff can come in a week and flip a couple of guys, a couple highly rated guys from other schools, and really put their names in the hat and make some difficult decisions for players at other schools. It just shows you the juice that Lane Kiffin is going to have with this LSU logo on the side of his clothing, his visor. It's just different, you know. And that's been his motto, is that it's different, because it really is different. So we got all National Signing Day news out of the way. We got all of the coaching news, as far as I know, up to date. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to stop the podcast here. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the podcast if you're watching this on replay. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your consideration. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Jump down in the comments and let me know how you're feeling about Lane Kiffin and LSU right now after a week's time. Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Just let me know. You know, let's have some constructive banter in the comments. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for other thoughts from me, I joined the Purple Mafia podcast earlier this week with Purple Mafia and LSU Fan Dan, and we talked about the signing class, and we talked about some coaching news as well. I've linked that video on my page and shared it on my page, especially on TikTok. A lot of people liking the three-headed monster, or the three-headed hydra, as we're called, covering LSU sports. So make sure you guys go follow those two gentlemen, LSU Fan Dan and Purple Mafia. They cover LSU sports as well. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you for joining the world's greatest podcast that covers LSU. This is the Gold Standard Podcast. Well, we love purple, but it's all gold, baby. You have a great day. Amazing rest of your week. Happy holidays to you and yours. And go Tigers, and play Nick.